1 in 22 kids had some ideation of suicide, in a stat from a couple years ago. Of those, 1 in 10 actually try it. And we've served club members who have had tendencies of that nature. And I can remember a time where we were actually doing a local town hall meeting with some of our local and state legislators, and we had a club member who was involved in some of those behaviors, some mental health challenges, who had been away and come back for a time, and happened to then participate in that town hall meeting. And as the event wrapped up and the discussion wrapped up, that legislator went over to that club member and had a discussion, and I could see that club member walk away with tears in their eyes. And you could tell it made a positive difference. It wasn't sad or upset. It was a very positive thing. So I snagged that legislator and I said, I don't know what you said, but the impact that you think you made is tenfold in that discussion, in that short discussion. So, I think those are those opportunities that you have to approach every day. You have to approach interactions in a way that you just don't know what someone's going through.
Welcome to the Cincinnati Business Podcast, where we elevate the voices of business owners, nonprofits, and subject matter experts across the greater Cincinnati area. And brought to you by the Cincinnati Podcast Studio. Well, hey, everybody, welcome back. I'm your host, Brian Erickson. And one of the things that we don't do on a super regular basis, but someone I want to bring onto the show is nonprofits. One of the reasons is that as a business culture inside of Cincinnati, it is our duty, in a way, I see it as our duty to support amazing nonprofits in the area. And so one of them, I just couldn't help but be our first nonprofit on the podcast, is my good friend, Damon Knoche. It's pronounced right, Knoche? Knoche. See, I always read it on an email, and I was afraid that I was going to mispronounce it. I think that's a theme now. I'm starting to mispronounce my guests' names as I have them on the show. But you're from the Boys and Girls Club of Westchester Liberty, and can you tell us a little bit, just a general overview of what the Boys and Girls Club does? Because I think it's a household name. People know of you guys, but they're not exactly sure what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad you're here.
Beautiful studio, and love conversing with you guys all the time. So appreciate having us. But Boys and Girls Club's been around the country for a long time, and today nationally, I think there's 5,000 club organizations that are serving local communities. And I grew up in a boys club. It was a boys club at the time, not Boys and Girls Club.
Right, yeah.
In Maysville, Kentucky. That was a Tom Browning's boys club, not the pitcher.
Yeah.
It had a lot of connectivity with peers and mentors and coaches and officials and things like that many of those I still am in contact with today. So, Boys and Girls Clubs are really designed as after-school programs that support kids and families who need us in those crucial hours after school, before parents get home, that need a place to be, and not only a place to be, a safe place to be, both physically, emotionally, to really give kids an opportunity to continue learning beyond the school day and outside the walls of those classrooms. And, we're very focused and targeted on what we call priority outcome areas. So every club in the country, including us in Westchester Liberty, you're going to see programs on a day-to-day basis that focus on academic success, fostering healthy lifestyles, really working at life and workforce readiness. Mm-hmm. And then, from kind of a holistic standpoint, everything that we do is tied to character education and leadership skills, and really teaching kids how to advocate for themselves, productively work through conflicts and things like that with their peers. So
I love that. And I think I want to hit every single one of those kind of pillars that you guys have, because you have unique things you do inside of each one of those.
Sure.
And just for a little bit of reference, as people are watching this show, I've done a bunch of video work with you over the last year. And so I've gotten to learn a lot of insight on this. So if I'm talking from that perspective, I've not actually been ever a part of a Boys and Girls Club as a kid, but I love what you guys do. So that's why it's so valuable to me. But what I want to go back to a little bit is, like, your title is CEO of the Westchester Liberty Boys and Girls Club. So what's kind of the path that brought you to that? Because that's a big title to have in such a big organization.
Yeah, and I think, part of my role is to make sure, we take from a national organization the guidance and the things that need to happen for us to remain under that title as a Boys and Girls Club. But really, I think the way our organization operates is really to match the needs of our community. And I'll get into that a little bit more in terms of programming and what that looks like too. We're not a licensed childcare provider, but what we do is look for opportunities and interests of the club members that we have in our building, and then really get creative about how do we work with the community and how do we work with organizations and other businesses that are of interest to our kids, and bring those services and experts, content experts in to talk about that. And, I think the underlying role of clubs is how do we create that spark, right? And for us, serving 150 plus kids a day in our building during the school year and that same amount during summer camp, how do we introduce them to a future career pathway or a future hobby or a future interest, and really get them outside the walls of what maybe they normally would see not only in their community, in their school, in their home, even with their family, like things that maybe they haven't experienced. So I think it's a challenge, but I think it's an awesome thing to work toward, and a goal for us as an organization.
Well, I think it's a great goal too, because from my understanding, a little bit of your time starting in education was at a school district that had lots of fires to put out sometimes. There was a lot of times where you saw the effects of maybe not kids having the greatest after school environments. Sure. So tell me a little bit about where you started and how it brought you to the Boys and Girls Club.
Well, and I think it goes back to even my childhood. I was very fortunate. Our parents placed a huge priority on education, and something that, wasn't always at the forefront in their lives, but felt like it was a priority to give us those opportunities. And, I jokingly say my mother used to work for our county board of education, so we couldn't do anything during the school day that didn't get back to her before we got to the house. But,
that's
but I
rough.
can remember one of the things, she would challenge my sister and I both is we'd have a new dictionary every summer. And I can remember 10 vocabulary words a week, and we'd write them in sentences and learn how to spell them and all that. And if we could use them in conversation during that week, there might be a incentive or reward at the end of the week. So, that priority in education, I think, is what drove me to get into education. So, had the opportunity to work as a high school intervention specialist, high school science teacher, coach, athletic director, and spent about 8 years in education, finishing up as a principal of a local alternative school. So have really...
Which one was that, by the way?
I was a group that was associated and served Princeton City
Princeton,
Schools.
yes,
So,
okay,
yeah,
yes,
so
that's what it was.
Had about 75, 80 kids, junior high and high school, that we provide some alternative education opportunities to. And, from that experience over those years, saw a lot of different family dynamics, a lot of different needs. And I think in transitioning to that nonprofit role, my mentality has always been, how do we, in those nonprofit organizations I've been associated with, how do we become that value-added partner for the family, for the school? How do we drive that overall benefit and lifetime benefit back to the community? So, from that standpoint, I think I've been very fortunate to have the roles that I'm in, and I look at the Boys and Girls Club as kind of a full circle moment to having participated in programs at the Boys Club growing up to now being able to help hopefully drive and create some new opportunities for kids today.
Well, that's super fun. And it seems like that full circle moment happens a lot inside of the Boys and Girls Club, because I think you even mentioned to me, you have certain staff now who were kids at Westchester Liberty and now are serving as staff members. I think that's super cool.
We've recently hired our first club alumni back to help do that. And, it's cool. Us as an organization, we're only 10 years old. This is our 10th anniversary of serving the Westchester Liberty community.
Awesome.
And, from that standpoint, we've made that first decade, and now we're starting to look, the next 10 years, what does that look like? And I think it incorporates club alumni, and it's greater numbers of people in the community that have had some experience in our building with our programs, or even having some of our kids out to volunteer with their organizations or events. I think it's kind of a pie in the sky goal, but I think there's nothing better than walking into a community event and running into folks that said, "Hey, I saw your kids the other day, and they were doing this, this, and this, and they behaved this way, and they were so appreciative, and they were so kind, and they were so well spoken." Those are the rewarding moments for me when I'm out and about.
That's super cool. Well, okay, so I want to get into kind of the details of Boys and Girls Club, but I think for some people who may not have grown up in the space where they needed such a thing, why is after school programs important? Like even some of the data behind it, because I know that you love data.
Yeah.
So like I'm curious, like why is that an important thing for kids right now?
It's a great question, and I think for us, it's changing the narrative, not only for us and our organization in Westchester and Liberty Township, but I think nationally is. There's this stigma, and even growing up, I think there's a misperception that Boys and Girls Clubs are designed for kids that are low income, low socioeconomic settings, poor or underserved communities. And that's just not the case, because what we do on a day-to-day basis, every kid needs. Yeah. And I think that's part of how we need to communicate moving forward is every kid needs access to educational supports. Every kid needs access to learning how to live a healthy lifestyle and make healthy choices. And especially in this day and age, how to mentally be able to maneuver through the challenges of day-to-day life with peers and adults and family members. And how do we cope with those things? How do we work through those challenges? So from a trauma-informed perspective, how do we as a staff foster that relationship?
And I love how trauma-informed has become a buzzword in education recently. I think that is such a valuable thing that you guys are doing.
It's interesting the way that's morphed, because I think when that first came out, it was, I think there's some folks in the community that hear that word and perceive that as, oh, this is like a kid glove thing, that we have to handle every interaction in a way that we don't really hold accountable behaviors or things of that nature. And really it's just a standpoint that instead of approaching a child from a manner of what did you do when something comes up, it's a matter of what happened. Yeah. And it's not a matter of it happened to you. It's a matter of, hey, maybe you witnessed something, or maybe you were part of a conversation, or maybe you just saw an interaction between two other people that was completely removed from you as an individual. Yeah. But the way you process that can change your outlook on how you interact in your environment, in your school environment, with your peers. And, on a day-to-day basis, we all have good days. We all have bad days. Yeah. And I think for us as an organization with the Boys and Girls Club, one of the messages we try to, relay to our team is, if you're getting the brunt of the story today, and the emotions are coming out to you, and the challenges, and maybe what they're saying and the language they're using is maybe being perceived as a personal thing, don't take it personally. Yeah. Because you might be the most consistent part of their day. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, it's no different than your family. Sometimes when we interact with parents or spouses or children, that sometimes what we say isn't necessarily the right thing to say, but we give each other the benefit of the doubt, right? Because we know their heart, we know how they care for us and depend on us and interact with us. We have to take that from a standpoint of, sometimes the people that you have the most trust in, the most confidence in, get the brunt of the storm. Yeah. And being able to objectively look at that and not take that as a personal thing, something that we try to strive to do on a day-to-day basis, and realize that, hey, the safest spaces are where some of this information comes out.
Absolutely. And I think the overall value there is also, so much of trauma-informed work is knowing the story of the kid who's having these issues, or having the emotional response in that moment. And so we had another guest into the studio recently where they were talking about the idea of sometimes you don't need to the classic form of punishment for your kid may not be the right way, because they just need time with you. Right. They don't need to be pushed away because they don't normally get that time with you. So time in versus time out, those classic kind of things. So the same way that you guys work in that space where you can say, hey, we know this kid's story. We understand that this is something important to them, and we can treat them the way that they want to be treated.
Absolutely.
Instead of just,
Yeah.
no, iron rod kind of.
Yeah, and I think kids respond differently. We as adults respond differently. I go back to coaching days, and there's some players that needed a little bit more interaction with. That hey, if you talk a little bit more in a stern voice, the point gets across a little bit quicker, and we get the outcome that we want. There's others that you have to put your arm around and have a conversation, and not put them in the middle of the spotlight and have that conversation and kneel down at the bench and say, hey, let's talk through this and figure that out to ultimately get to that. I think what's unique about boys and girls clubs, and we found this out in a statewide survey, nationally, there's a staggering statistic about teens in particular and feeling connected, where across the country, only about 43% of our teens feel like they have a strong connection with a peer or an adult mentor. So when you hear a number like 43%, under that 50% mark, it kind of changes your perception of, hey, maybe this is why there's some mental health concerns in our youth population. Maybe there's this ripple effect of how that affects every other thing in their life. What we found in some return on investment in studies, social return on investment studies with clubs in the state of Ohio, is that 85% of our teens do feel like they have that connection with someone in our organization, whether it's a peer, a coach or a counselor, an administrator. They have that connection somewhere. So to double that national average, the benefits of that are huge in terms of their self-confidence or self-esteem, their impact on ideations of suicide or self-harm or harm to others. There's so many things that play onto that. And then that ripples over into their academic performance. When they're confident and they feel like they have that connection, that piece is kind of working well in their lives. Then it opens the door to, hey, you know what? Let's try this because I might have success in this arena too.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And there was another stat that you said to me at some point that, and I don't remember what it was, but there's something about the majority of trouble kids get into is in somewhere in those after school hours, right?
Yeah.
What is that?
And you look at this, I don't think you could find a community in the entire country that wouldn't have similar numbers. But specifically for us in Westchester Liberty, you look at teen crime or whatnot, the peak hours for that are after school until like 7, 8 o'clock at night. So you think about that. That's hours where if kids don't have somebody at home or kids don't have a positive opportunity to get involved in their community in some way, where idle hands, idle minds get into things that we don't need to get into, or try things that you shouldn't do, or are going to be unproductive ways to invest your time and energy in. So, I think clubs that are in those communities across the state and across the country are definitely seeing trends reversed when it comes to youth crime rates and delinquency issues in that time frame after school. It's such a critical time.
Oh, it is such a critical time. But I think there's also an economic impact that the clubs have.
There is.
I think you quoted a stat to me the other day that was talking about how if there is a boys and girls club located in a town, you actually see like $38 for every dollar that is invested in the club.
It's insane. So, we have a very active alliance of boys and girls clubs. So our Ohio Alliance encompasses about 13 club organizations across the state of Ohio. And, through the years 2010, 2015, there were return on investment studies. And part of that is to justify state funds that we may have received over the years and whatnot. What's that true impact? We can talk about individual stories of kids and families, and I can tell stories that definitely would bring tears to your eyes about the impact that we make and the connections that the kids have with us as an organization and our team. But ultimately, where's the numbers, right? Everything's empirically driven. So studies that were done in 2010, 2015, we had the opportunity as a state alliance to work with the Ohio University's Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Service that not only looked at the economic benefits of us as an organization statewide, but looked at social return on investment. And some of the numbers that came out of that really tell the story about the work that we do on a day-to-day basis. And to your point, from an economic standpoint, what they found is for every dollar invested in clubs in the state of Ohio, the lifetime benefit to that community is $35.16. So I'm not an economics guy. I'm not a finance guy. But, you tell me that if I contribute $1, the benefit of that is going to roll over 35-fold. That makes sense. And I think for the business community, a 10% profit, a 15% profit are very eye-opening things for business owners and corporations that function in our community. We're talking $35 of impact is huge.
That's crazy. And I'm so curious how they came up with that number, because I don't even understand how data works like that.
Well,
That's
and
crazy.
part of it is, what are the positive things that number gets you to in terms of the success of the youth that you're serving, opportunities for career advancement, job placement, things like that we foster as part of daily programming. But then part of that is the prevention side of things too. If we're not taking that after school time and being at the club, what are we doing with that? So from a preventative standpoint, the impact on social resources, community resources that could have to address problems in the community now are not being spent. So I think that number is definitely the culmination of both the positive and the opportunities that we're not having to pay for as citizens in our communities. So that study was huge. But even from a social standpoint, what we also learned in that is risk behaviors start to change. So for kids that were involved in their club organizations across the state, what they found was there was a 50% less likelihood for club members to engage in underage drinking, 46% chance that they're less likely to start vaping. With healthy lifestyles programming that we're fostering physical activity and engagement in the club, we're talking reduced hypertension. Those at-risk behaviors are going to provide much more productive long-term benefits to them health-wise that aren't going to cost anything to them if they continue down that path. One of the other stats that came out of that really was geared around workforce. I've always been one as part of the club organization that said, hey, we have a captive audience of 150 kids a day to get them excited about a career pathway. And what the study showed us is not only are we working with our generation currently about what their future career pathway is, but 79% of the caregivers who have their children, grandchildren, whomever as part of our club organizations reported that if it wasn't for the club, they wouldn't be able to retain the job that they have today. So not only are we working toward getting kids part of the future workforce to keep companies that are in your community in place long term, but then new companies that want to come into your neighborhoods, having a workforce that's ready and able to go. But that number, 79% of our caregivers said that they wouldn't be able to retain their jobs today if it wasn't for the club organizations in their community.
Whoa.
So that's a huge percentage, but then they put a numerical value to that. So across that 79%, that amounted to a little over $328 million worth of annual salaries and wages.
Whoa.
So that's huge.
That's massive.
Huge. It's parents, grandparents being able to keep their kids in the community, to provide for their families, to take care of those basic needs while in an environment with the kids that they can continue to, grow academic skills and job skills and have healthy choices in front of them, and doing it amongst a community of other peers that are all working the same direction.
Well, so then from a non-data side, do you have a story of once you took over Westchester Liberty where all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, this makes sense why we do what we do? Like, do you have a story like that kind of sticks out?
There's several. To pinpoint one, we actually had a former staff member who always used the term that our organization is really like a bridge. And couldn't agree more with that statement. And that bridge can take a lot of forms. We've had children who've lost parents, who are going through that traumatic experience of that, but then also going through the grief and bereavement of that. How do we foster that? Well, we foster that one of many ways, and part of that from the club side is providing consistent programs, connecting them to mentors, connecting them to peers, making sure those social relationships are forming to help lift them up out of that scenario. That club member had other family members that took custody and working, but that connectivity is always different when it's not the parent, right? So, but then it's also working with other organizations in the community too, and one of our huge partners is Companions on a Journey, another local nonprofit that does grief and bereavement counseling. They partner with a lot of different school districts, so you may see counselors from their organizations in there, but they're hosting 2 evening sessions for the community at our club. So we've got a lot of our club members and families that are taking part of that because maybe they've lost a loved one. We've got folks that take part of that as part of foster care programming, and trauma experiences they may have experienced before they came to us. Even family members who have someone incarcerated. It's all under that umbrella that Companions serve such a critical need in our community for. And the partnership of that with the club makes complete sense when we serve probably a dozen to a dozen and a half foster children a year as part of our club organization. So, but again, it's beyond just the kids. So the foster parents and family members that may still be involved, and how do we become an extension of that and a value added component for what their day to day life is? And for me, it's all about quality of life. So if we as an organization can provide programming that can enhance your quality of life, or partner with another organization from a collaborative standpoint that can bring value and help impact your quality of life, why would we not do it?
Oh, yeah.
Why would we not do it?
Oh, yeah. Well, do you have one of those like individual stories that is really near and dear to your heart?
Yeah. I think for me, there's another statistic that I think youth, and I can't remember the exact grade levels or ages, but 1 in 22 kids had some ideation of suicide, in a stat from a couple years ago, which is really staggering for those of us that didn't grow up in a generation where that was a topic. No. Now you look at the average high school person, they probably know someone or connected to someone 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon away from somebody who has either thought about that or is actively engaged in behaviors like cutting or things like that maybe are tendencies that, we have to be aware of and things like that. But I think the statistic then went on, not only do 1 in 22 have the ideation, of those 1 in 10 actually try it. And we've served club members who have had tendencies of that nature. And I can remember a time where we were actually doing a local town hall meeting with some of our local and state legislators, and we had a club member who was involved in some of those behaviors, some mental health challenges, who had been away and come back for a time, and happened to then participate in that town hall meeting, and without knowing it, got engaged with one of the local legislators, and for whatever reason, supernatural intervention, God intervening, you could see in the course of that hour-long discussion that the two of them, like, there was a connection there, and as the event wrapped up and the discussion wrapped up, that legislator went over to that club member and had a discussion, and I could see that club member walk away with tears in their eyes, and you could tell it made a positive difference. It wasn't sad or upset. It was a very positive thing. So I snagged that legislator and I said, I don't know what you said, but the impact that you think you made is tenfold in that discussion, in that short discussion. So, I think those are those opportunities that you have to approach every day. You have to approach interactions in a way that you just don't know what someone's going through. It's that, typical adage of, you just, unless you've walked a mile in their shoes, You just don't know. So we have to approach what we do as an organization in that way. And I hope that, as we build our organization to serve more kids and grow our team, we're continuing to build our team in a way that we're bringing folks in that have that same mentality and have that same perspective and really see us beyond the paycheck, beyond the role and responsibility of, hey, like you're really impacting the lives around you, and the opportunities that you have with 150 kids in front of you on a day-to-day basis are immeasurable.
That's incredible. Creating content for your marketing is a really time-consuming process. But what if I could tell you that you could create all of your marketing content needs in just 90 minutes? Here at the Cincinnati Podcast Studio, we see podcasts as a method for creating mountains of marketing content. And even if you think about it as a funnel, where you have your podcast maybe at the bottom, where you say like, hey, people want to watch and listen to this podcast, but how do they discover it? Well, let's create clips. Those clips could be 2 to 5 minutes long that tell more complete thoughts, but also in a shorter package for people who don't have time to watch your entire podcast. And then there's that whole other level on top of that where you get discovered, where you can put out short form pieces of content that are usually 30 to 60 seconds long that just tease enough that people are like, I want to know more. Tell me a little bit more. Then they watch the clips. Then they watch the podcast. And then when they hit the bottom of that funnel, all of a sudden you have fans. You have people who are interested in what you do, and they know already who you are, what you do, and what you create, and how they can be helped by you. So if this is at all interesting to you and you want to create marketing content at a pace you've never done before, reach out to us at CincinnatiPodcastStudio.com/tour and book a time to talk with us today. You're right. It is kind of incredible to see how just one interaction can change the life of a kid. That's pretty, I love how valuable that story is. And I think from what you've told me, that sort of thing happens every day.
There's so many opportunities, with 16, 18 staff in the building every day, the amount of interactions that are there, you just never know which one is which. And that's, I think about it, and I used this story a couple months ago and kind of trying to describe this is like, if you think about kind of your development and your early years and whatnot, if I were to ask you who your favorite teacher was, or somebody that made a difference in your life, most people can probably come up with 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5 people that help them in a myriad of different ways, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's, hey, this individual really helped me financially, this individual really helped me in terms of career. You have those handful of people that have really made that difference. And, now it's an opportunity to pass that forward.
Yeah.
But, you think about the characteristics of those people in your life and what they brought. You think about conversations. When I think about that, it's conversations that I had with those individuals, or it's interactions, or it's just maybe the environment they created for me to function in. Are all huge, huge things. And then you think about it from that standpoint, and you kind of step back and you're like, for us as a team and an organization, as a movement, folks involved with our organization across the country, you think about those individuals that have impacted your own life. And some of them may still be with us, some may not. But think, how proud would they be today of someone like you who are now trying to make that same difference for someone else?
Yeah.
And not only how proud they would be, but how inspired they would be by the work that you do. And that really sets a different tone culturally for us as an organization. But I think it also sets the tone for those day-to-day interactions with the members that we serve.
That's awesome. Well, talk to me about those day-to-day interactions, because I think, and maybe if you want to do it in the context of the pillars of what you guys do, because I love it. We've talked so many cool things about the club, but we haven't talked about what you do, like what is actually happening.
Sure.
So why don't you walk me through what is kind of happening on a like a normal weekly basis or something?
Yeah,
like that?
Absolutely. When kids arrive with us, obviously they've had a full day of school. They've taken school transportation. They're getting to us. What we're trying to do is meet them and greet them when they come in the door and create that positive vibe that, hey, how are things today? Just that quick check-in, giving kids a chance to grab a snack, go decompress from the day, go hang out in the gym and burn some energy, For those that aren't into that activity as a way to kind of decompress, hey, go to the art studio and see what the art instructor's got planned for the day and whatever mediums they have out. Doodle around, play around, sketch something, paint something as a way to kind of break up the day. And then from that, really our focus is going into program blocks. And there's no program block that's more important to us than academic success. So for us and many clubs across the country, there's a staple BGCA national program called Power Hour. And what that is designed to do is really foster the accountability of, hey, let's dive in and get your homework done. You're fresh off that school day, whatever that lesson is, fresh in your mind. Let's use our team of staff members, volunteers, mentors that can come in and support you in that. You know, one of the challenges for us in Westchester is that we serve so many kids across the district that there's actually 20 buses from Lakota that bring kids to us every day.
Wow.
So if you and I are fourth graders, we may not be in the same building, which means we have the same teacher, which means we have a varying degree of homework, right?
Yeah.
So in that power hour, there's a lot of things that can take place. We want to get to tutoring. We want to get to homework help. But there's sometimes that doesn't take the full hour. So what we've had to do is really look at this and say, yes, we're the safe space, but ultimately we want to start building that foundation that eventually you're going to have a job and there's going to be certain roles and responsibilities that you're going to be held accountable to do. So we want to foster those things as part of that full hour and make sure we've got programs that can challenge kids for that full time. So there's a couple unique partnerships that we've built out for academics that beyond homework help or specific tutoring for subject matter, there's such a huge need to do that. One of them is a platform, it's an online platform called Adminim Exact Path. And so we do a pre-assessment, post-assessment with each of our kids, especially in the elementary end of the spectrum, that really assesses what their ability is. Not necessarily a grade level ability, but where are they at in the progression of reading and math and ELA. And, there's a staggering statistic, and part of this is probably a post-COVID thing. But nationally, second through eighth graders are only 33% of second through eighth graders are at grade level proficiency in reading.
Wow.
Only 36% are proficient in math. So not only do we have the national data, but we also have the kids in front of us that we see the challenges and we know what that is. So, our academic director and our team really started moving toward a direction with this platform that once homework's done and your schoolwork's done, let's get you on this and let you earn trophies as you achieve different levels. And then the post-assessment at the end of that hopefully shows that we can take back to our local school district and say, here's what we've added for these many students across the spectrum to really help bolster where their testing scores and evaluation and progression scores are going to go. At the end of last school year, what we found was that for our club members, 44% were proficient in reading for their grade level.
Versus 38. Wow.
Versus 33.
Versus 33.
Yep. And for
Holy
math,
smokes.
The national level for math is 36, second through eighth grade. Our kids were 57% proficient in math.
Whoa.
So that in and of itself has been a great supplement to what we do in terms of academic success. The other area, when you hear that national statistic about reading levels, that 1 in 3 is all that's at grade level proficiency, it kind of warranted another thing. And through our Higher Alliance, we collaborated with an organization called Edge Fearless Learning. And what they are, it's a multisensory learning group out of Parkersburg, West Virginia, that during COVID went to a Zoom platform. And we've been able to take advantage of that. So 2 days a week during the school year, 4 days a week during the summer, we have kids who have tested and qualified for that program that jump on a Zoom platform with a licensed instructor to really dig into literacy, early literacy. And we know that there's nothing more important when it comes to early literacy, and not only in the development of early literacy, but also in the evaluation of how we get someone where they're at today to that level, than phonetics. It's the old hooked on phonics, right? If you can recognize what sounds these two letters make together, or this individual letter make, or the combination of this, then we can really work toward getting someone to grade level proficiency in their literacy. The tools that this group has in Edge Fearless Learning are so immense that they can pinpoint where the challenge is at. So in that pre-assessment and in that work, they may say, hey, this member today, the struggle is vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel. So a word like magnet would be a challenge.
Yeah.
And their licensed instructors then dig into that. And they're doing this in a small group setting. So we've had the last 2 years, we've had an opportunity for 32 individuals who qualify and test into this to participate in this throughout the year. Because of the impact that the stats have shown and our club members in Westchester, we actually are serving 42 kids as part of this program right now. So, but it's great to work with a collaborative partner that says, hey, you really have a need. We're going to figure this out. We're going to make it work. But what I can tell you with that is the 4 different categories, that phonetic awareness and recognition that they're sampling for in that pre and post assessment, our participants in that increase their level of competency by 15 to 25% in each of those 4 levels.
Wow.
So we know that we've got kids that are getting closer to grade level reading. What happens when you get close to grade level reading? Every door in the world opens academically for you.
Absolutely.
So I think about one individual that we had in particular that didn't like school. There was nothing about school that was driving achievement for this little guy. But his pre-assessment as a second grader, he was testing at like kindergarten levels of phonetic recognition. By the end of his second grade year, so 8-9 months into this process and working with our collaborative partners at the club, our club members and times on days that they weren't in session, following up with those skill levels and executing practice times and things to go over that. Volunteers that were coming in to read to our kids, they see it, they hear it, they're following. It's just repetition. That second grader who was initially coming in at kindergarten level finished his second grade year at late second, early third grade.
Whoa.
So in
awesome
8-9 months time, this collaborative effort really got him caught up in 2 years worth of abilities. And
that's amazing.
It's huge. We're talking over 1,100% increase in his competency level. And it all goes back to something as simple as just knowing what these letters and combined with other letters sound like.
Well, so it strikes me in a way that like one of the hardest things about public schooling is the fact that everyone has to learn at the same pace. And there's not as much individual attention that can be shown to every student. There's just not enough staff, not enough. But it seems like you guys are solving for that.
We're trying to find ways that we can hedge into that. And again, for me, it goes back to that value added component is if there's something that we can do with our team, something that we can do in our program, something we can develop or collaborate with that brings in a tool that's assessing that. In 5 years from now, maybe this is not a need for us, but there's going to be another need. So who do we have a relationship with? How do we connect with resources, not only locally, regionally, but now across the country to find opportunities for kids to enhance those skills? I think it's huge.
Okay, so obviously academic excellence, and you've got a bunch of other pillars, but the one that I think I'm curious about is a little bit your healthy lifestyles, and I think it's called like career preparedness or...
our life and workforce readiness.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about those programs.
Yeah, the life... healthy lifestyles component of things obviously is the physical activity and whatnot. So every kid wants to come to the gym. They want to play mat ball. They want to do things. We've added strength training classes. They're using body weight exercises, things like that to challenge them. And again, highlighting the achievement. It's that positive reinforcement that's getting us to where we need to. And I think that's testimony in and of itself is, of our registered members, we're averaging about 55, 60% of those in on a day-to-day basis. So not only do our kids excel in what they're doing, but they want to be there. And that's huge. One of my funny stories is seeing a kid that comes in, they get settled for the day, and they kind of see the program options that are up on the board day to day. what's really cool is when somebody comes back up to the front desk and says, "Hey, can you send mom or dad a message and tell them not to pick me up until this time? 'Cause I don't want to miss what's going on in that." Like that tells you that you're doing something right.
Yes.
But from the healthy lifestyle perspective, it's more than just the physical activity. You know, we've got a full kitchen, so we do programs like Cultures and Cuisines that look at different ethnicities and regions across the country, and not only everything about that culture, but they're getting a chance to go make a healthy recipe of something that's culturally the norm and whatnot in that setting.
And during spring, summer, you guys have a garden outside.
We do. We've got raised garden beds. We partner with OSU Extension Office. We work with our senior coalition in Westchester of retirees that are coming in to help things. So, it's great to be able to be in a meeting and walk out and like, what is that smell? And it's not like somebody's burnt popcorn in the building. Yeah. They've actually gone out, picked tomatoes out of the garden, came in and made homemade tomato soup and grilled cheese.
That's so cool.
Again, it's the life skill workforce stuff, but it's also just normal functionality. There's kids that we serve that are in single parent homes, and if they can learn a healthy way, safe way to help prepare food, then again, it's a value added thing that we can do for them as an individual, for them and their family. I think, we talked a little bit about the mental health component, but that absolutely ties into healthy lifestyles too. And we can't do what we do with just our team. So one of the strategic partnerships that we've had, and fortunate to receive some funding on a state level from OMAS, Ohio Mental Health and Addiction Services, for this, is we've partnered with an agency that's right down the street from us called Focus on Youth. That are providing what we call in a program group talk, where they pull from different grade levels, different age groups, 8 or 10 kids at a time, and just have some different topics to talk about. And it's just, again, it's that mentorship, it's that safe space, it's being able to talk about things. One of my pet peeves and a hot topic is conflict resolution over the years, and kids don't know how to resolve conflicts, and some kids don't, and we have to do that. But until a youth member knows how to advocate for themselves and really express what it is they're feeling and have a safe space to do that, and have the tools that Focus on Youth is working with them every day to develop, they're not going to resolve that conflict because they can't get to their root. They can't express the root of what it is that they're feeling to get beyond that. And you think about that in a deep level. We as adults struggle with that sometimes too, right? There's a conflict with a coworker, a family member, a neighbor, church congregation. There's a conflict, and what do? We typically avoid it, and not that we need to address every issue all the time, but at the same time, do you have the skills to articulate what it is you're feeling about that, or how that comment, how that action impacted you as an individual? And that's where Focus on Youth is making a huge difference.
That's cool.
And we see that behaviorally in the club. We see that when our club members are out in the community and serving with other organizations or other events. The benefit, I think, for that is, there's nothing better than to hear how respectful and how appropriate behaviors are when our kids are out serving others. So
that's cool. I mean, while you were saying that, I was thinking about my son, who is 2.5, and he's just starting to learn how to name feelings. And so it's so funny to watch him, like, multiple times a day, he'll be like, "I'm sad because Grammy's not here today." And it's it's so fun to see that thriving in a young kid. And you get to do that on a larger scale with a bunch of other kids. That's incredible. That
recognition and the ability to process where you're at. So, you go into the room where Focus on Youth is at, and you'll see that emotional check-in. So you can take a little smiley face or take your little marker with your name on it and put it under a smiley face, or "I'm okay," or I had a bad day. And that check-in is part of what daily program looks like. Every time there's a change in program blocks, there's trauma-informed program spaces. Our staff are doing that. They're getting a gauge. So as a staff member, I want to get a gauge on where my kids are at before we go into this activity. That gives me some guidance as to who I might need to spend a little bit more time with, or maybe who's really not going to like doing this today, and what's the backup plan? How do we engage them if this is not the right, appropriate program for them today? But at the same time, too, it also fosters that connectivity and that relationship with knowing that they can express how they feel, and it's not going to impact how our team serves them. It's going to set the stage for them to be successful in that space.
Yeah. Man. Okay. I want to talk more, but we're running low on time.
Yeah.
So I want to ask a little bit, just to understand a little bit about your workforce preparedness thing, because you and I were talking off camera before this, that like you guys are like bringing in some big name people to talk to them and like let them know about what that looks, what the workforce looks like, and help them find things. In fact, one of the kids that we interviewed when we were there was like, I cannot wait to be an OBGYN. And she's 13. And I'm like, really? That's okay. Right. Awesome. Great. Yeah. So like, tell me a little bit about how that program works. Like,
so, I think it continues to evolve. And, the benefit of that is we have a community that cares about kids. And I think that's going back to, the whole nonprofit thing.
Yeah.
There's so many nonprofits in the greater Cincinnati area. They're doing such good work. And that doesn't happen unless you have a community that wants to give back and wants to impact. And from life and workforce readiness programs with us, we've been so fortunate to have state legislators, local legislators. We've had physicians, attorneys. We brought in the head of TSA at CVG Airport. The kids had a blast. They were wanding each other the whole day. So
that's fun.
We still got to work on how do we get them back over, because a lot of kids haven't flown before. Like, what does an airport look like? What does security look like? So we're trying to, again, just open doors that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise gotten the chance to see.
Yeah.
So Workforce Wednesdays are a huge opportunity from local firemen that are coming, and EMTs and things like that. We've had DJs. We've had folks that do digital marketing and things like that.
And haven't you guys had like some Bengals come and stuff like that too?
We've had some different players. We've got one of our most consistent groups now is a bunch of employees from one of the outlet mall stores at Nike up in Monroe that come down. So they come down and play in the gym and whatnot. It was funny the first time we brought them in. I think they all thought they were getting a bunch of swag from Nike. No, it's not that. They're coming to actually engage and connect with you. So been very fortunate in that regard. But then, at the same time too, especially when we get into those teen years, of really trying to dial into, let's see what pathways might be beneficial that you have an interest in. We're trying to meet our teens where they're at, and all teens love technology and love video games and things like that. So again, through the Ohio Alliance of Boys and Girls Clubs in Ohio, we've been able to access a program called Transfer VR. So literally it's VR headsets that take you through, I think there's 20 plus 5 to 8 minute simulations of different career pathways. So you can work hospitality and be at the front desk of a hotel. You can do warehousing and run a fork truck and move stuff around. There's public safety. Yeah, there's public safety. You can do it in a safe way where you're not going to hurt anybody.
Oh my gosh.
But there's, public safety where you can learn how to use a fire extinguisher. I think about a lot of our kids and families who may be in apartment complexes or not single family homes that maybe they're not the cause of something, but something happens. Yeah. Do you know how to use the equipment that's there? Again, another important life skill. But all the way up to doing a knee replacement surgery, where and that was one of the ones I tried. I'm like, I want to do that. So, the patient comes in and here's your scalpel and here's your drill and you can see things, and it gets pretty graphic, and you can find out very quick if you have the stomach for medical work. But again, it just finding different ways to create a spark, meet kids where they're at, expose them to things that maybe they haven't done. And then, we have somebody that's interested in that and love that knee surgery demo. Guess what? We've got great connectivity with our healthcare providers who, there's robotic orthopedic surgeries. They can bring the robot to us and let the kids play around with the robot. So, again, you create that spark, and you go back to the moments of, and I circle back to that conversation we had earlier about mentors and who are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that you have that connecting story. Can today be the day that we provide that connecting story that changes the course and the direction of where one of our youth members want to take their life?
That's incredible. Well, you sold me. I love what you guys do. So how can those who are listening support you guys in a way that's actually meaningful?
Absolutely. I think for us, with the amount of kids that we serve, it's touch points. So it's folks from our corporate community that are in different career pathways, sharing what that is, coming to the club. as a speaker, as a volunteer. It's retirees that maybe have been at GE or P&G that have engineering backgrounds or biology backgrounds that can come in and help kids with homework in those subject areas, mentor them, provide that guidance. It's opportunities to support the club. We depend a lot on state funding, and so relationships with our local legislators and seeing the impact, providing that empirical data is a huge benefit to us. But at the same time, too, state budgets and the needs of government at local, state, and federal levels continue to evolve, and those budgets are only 2-year cycles. So one of the things I think every club is looking for is folks to contribute financially, whether as an individual or local company that can really invest in our kids. And there's ways to do that, monthly donations, individual, one-time gifts, sponsorship of events, things like that all help make sure that we can continue to serve. The worst thing for us is have a wait list. Don't want to have a wait list. Like, we want to make sure that we're serving our community to meet the needs that they have today.
That's awesome. So coming up, we're we're in February now. And so what do you guys have coming up here in the next few months that are super interesting?
Lions, tigers, and bears, my friend. We
sure.
got everything. So we're doing our first pickleball tournament on March 23rd out at the Pickle Lodge.
Fun.
Newer venue to the community, opportunity to come out, have some fun, but at the same time learn a little bit about what we do as an organization and how you can impact that work.
Cool.
We do a annual golf outing, the Boehner Golf Classic out at Wetherington. That's scheduled for June the 2nd, which also coincides with our first day of summer camp this year.
Yeah.
So that'll be a busy
day.
very, very busy day. We're working on planning a key event for fall, and some club and community recognition stuff in between. But summer camp registration will start mid-March, and we're trying to work hard to wrap up and make sure all the kids have a successful end of the year as we get into the second half of the academic calendar, and make sure again that we can show that we're making a difference.
I love it, man. You guys are making a difference. It's obvious when I'm in there. It's so clear that the kids just love being there.
They do.
That's a big win. So, like we end every episode, that's your camera right there. Give us your pitch and how they can reach out and connect with you if they want to learn more or get engaged with the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Boys and Girls Club of Westchester Liberty serves our entire community from grades 2 through 12. But there's boys and girls of all ages. So those who are interested and want to get involved, really make a difference not only in the lives of others, but really enrich your own personal life. There's volunteer opportunities, there's career opportunities, there's mentorship opportunities. Reach out to us. Our website is www.bgcwcl, the full acronym of our organization, bgcwcl.org, and learn more about how you can make a difference in the lives of our community today.
Damon, seriously, I'm so grateful that you made the time to come here today.
Hey, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this was fantastic.
We won't make this one the last one.
No, it's not going to be. But seriously, guys, this is an important group in our town that is making a huge difference. And there's multiple Boys and Girls Clubs in Cincinnati. So even if you're not in the Westchester Liberty area, also get involved with the Greater Cincinnati one or other organizations in the area, because they desperately need your help and they're making a difference.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. Seriously.
Thanks for having me.
It's been so much fun.